So I've been wanting to put together some content for a while, centered around leadership. I was blessed enough to start my leadership journey early in life, around that middle school, high school time. And along the way, I learned a lot. And I learned that I was ahead of a lot of my peers by getting involved at such an early age. So a lot of the stuff that I was learning, in middle school and high school, a lot of my peers was learning, after taking their first stab at leadership and, on college campuses, or actually after college, getting into the real world. This first topic, we're going to talk about leadership style. Leadership is the ability to activate people. So it's taking something that's not moving and making it mobile, and it's doing it with people. And there's various ways to activating people, and that's in how you activate someone. We'll get more into your leadership style, but for me, the root of it is being able to activate people, and it can be for the good or for the bad. I mean, when we think about, growing up, I also work, I work in education. So when I think about leadership, some of our best leaders are, what teachers and other students mark as that class clown. That class clown was able to shift the mood of the classroom. They was able to get a classroom that's, might be kind of quiet or dull or empty or quiet or nothing's happening. At the drop of a one joke or two jokes or a couple sayings, they can shift that whole energy and have the class dying laughing and bring a whole energy to the classroom that wasn't there. To me, that's leadership. I mean, whether it's, pulling people in the right direction or the wrong direction, that's neither here nor there. But when you can recognize that someone can take something that's not happening, that's not active, that's not mobile, and activate it, that's leadership. People are activated for different reasons. Someone has a grand vision and they want to be a part of that. That may activate them to move and get active and do something and get involved. And that's a lot of the leadership that we see, like in the workplace. When we talk about people like some of the innovators and visionary leaders, Steve Jobs and the Mark Zuckerbergs, people were drawn to what they're doing, and it's like, what? They're doing some cool stuff. Let me see how I can fit in. Let me see if I can be a part of that. Because I do think it's another human trait that we want to feel like we're a part of something that's bigger than ourselves. So we don't want to oftentimes you find people want to be part of something that's a group. I feel like human beings are social creatures. We weren't made to survive alone. So I think it's a human instinct that we'll want to band together with the group and do something collectively. And I feel like that's a big part of leadership is understanding group dynamic and understanding, how we can use that very human characteristic to get people to move in a particular direction. Some people are activated through speech, motivational speech. Someone can share some words, or it even can be people posting messages. I mean, that's as much as, I was kind of fighting against the whole concept of, people who do social media content being seen as leaders. It's like, nah, they're content developers, they're not leaders. But, when you have a following of, X amount of people, and when your post moves someone to activate, when your post inspires someone, when your post motivates someone, I mean, I guess by my definition that I'm choosing here, it makes you a leader. So it took me a minute to wrestle with that one, because I'm used to, more in person. I'm kind of old school in my approach to leadership in some ways. And this whole thing, it's really weird for me. I don't mind speaking in front of crowds, I don't mind speaking in front of audience, groups or whatever. But when it comes to speaking in front of a camera by myself, it's kind of weird. And I always tried to separate that from, leadership. But in this day and age, things change, and I have to change my way of thinking about it, and or else I'll be left behind, and no one wants that, or I don't. People want to feel like they're a part of something that's bigger than themselves. As I said, humans are social characters or social beings. We weren't built to survive alone. We like to preach, independent, I'm independent, I do this all on my own, blah, 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 blah. But nah, like, we're social creatures where we work together as a collective in order to survive. That family unit was where it all began, and we were able to create massive civilizations based on our ability to come together and work collectively. So whenever I hear about the independent and all on my own by myself, I usually kind of shun that. I put that on the side somewhere because it's not true. Like, even the folks who did struggle through a lot of things on their own, like, we are social creatures and we're collective creatures, and that's the only way we thrive, is when we are able to leverage each other in ways. And if you did do things on your own, then I wanted to challenge you and say, maybe things would have moved a little quicker if you would have allowed other people to step in and provide some help and guidance and some assistance and kind of help you along the way. Of course, it always you got to make sure you bring good people in, because some people will pull you in the opposite direction that you're trying to go to. Leadership style is your approach to activating people. So how do you choose to activate people around you? In my current job, I've seen my leadership style shift a few different times. And a lot of times it'll be based when I switch teams and I'm leading a different team or leading a different group of people. And I think it's leadership style. I think your style is something that's fluid, or it can be fluid. For me in particular, it's been very fluid. When I was leading a group of very green engineers, I was more hands-on, jump into the problem, and kind of get, still really motivating people to be their best selves and provide their best value. But I was also doing some stuff. I had a couple code changes that I put in. I helped more directly in testing and gathering requirements, and I'd be much more hands-on. Later, I led a team of almost all seniors, and at that point it wouldn't be helpful for me to be so hands-on and in the code and making changes. So I had to step back and I had to shift my leadership style, because I couldn't lead by doing at that point, because it would have slowed the team down, and I realized that way early on. So I didn't even try to, jump in the code and make changes in the code base, because it took too long for me to get up to speed on how they're doing things, and like they were just on a completely another level, like in terms of their technical ability. And like I said, it would have slowed things down if I would have tried to jump in the code with them. So I had to shift my approach and my leadership style in that regard. So instead of being a leader that led by example, I had to be a leader that just created an environment for them to get the most that they can get done, and also maintain that vision and always thinking those few steps ahead. Because particularly with engineering teams, you want your engineers to really be able to get into the problems that they're solving now. But at the same time, you want to balance that. And I found this, for me at least, I want to balance, them working on the things now and at least being knowledgeable about the things that are coming up, so they aren't hit with any surprises. So that was the balancing act. So it was more of providing vision and an environment for them to really kick ass, more so than being an example. And that was the huge leadership shift that I saw between leading some of the more green teams to leading more senior and more experienced team members. So in my role on the board, creating that environment, and also having a good, keen sense of the vision and direction that we want the school to go in from a high level, those are two very important aspects. But one thing that I've started to take on a bit more is making sure I'm more present and being a bit more hands-on than I am like in my work, in my current job. So where my leadership style in the school is, it's becoming a bit more hands-on and a bit more visible. I've been trying to get more engaged in different meetings at the school and just kind of have some presence there. And I think it's been taken very positively, because oftentimes on school boards you have your school board members who kind of sit at the top, and they're rarely seen, and they make all the important decisions, and there's always the thought that they're so high up that they don't really know what's going on the ground floor. They're out of touch. We never see them. Who is the board? What do they do? And it's all these questions about this board that people speak of. So I found it to be valuable to be present, where I won't really get involved in making certain decisions that's really outside the scope of the board. I will get involved with helping out. So if we're, if they're bringing people in to help open doors for the first day of school, I'm out there opening doors. I'm there with the teachers, with the staff. If it's a matter of showing up to a parent-teacher conference, I'm showing up. Not really, telling them, how to run it. Not really saying that they're doing something right or wrong, but I'm just there to be present, to observe, so I can be in a position where I can make better decisions for the people that I'm serving. Because one important thing to realize is when you're in leadership, your job is to serve. So I say all of that to say that your leadership style isn't this rigid thing. Like, it's something that can change and shift. Your leadership style is unique to you. And it's pulling from all those characteristics that you have that activates people around you. So what are those things that you do naturally that activate people? And I want, as we think about it, I want you to lean in on those things that are natural to you, that those natural things that makes you a leader, but also don't rely only on those. As a leader, throughout your leadership journey, you should be seeking to learn other ways of leading. Like, you shouldn't just be one type of leader or just have one style of leadership, because if you don't evolve, you're gonna lose, because especially today, and it's always been the case that today things are evolving much faster and moving much faster than they ever have. So if you're still doing the same thing and still leading the same ways that you had in the past, then what do you think is going to happen? Because we got a new generation of people that's coming up with different thoughts, different ways of moving, different ways of being led, and they tolerate different things and they don't tolerate different things, especially with the way the market is moving right now, the job market, that is. The way the job market is moving right now, in some industries, the employees have a little room to be a little picky about things. And if you're going off strict leadership principles that might have worked in the manufacturing days, and it's like, I'm your boss and I told you to do this, so do it. It's like, I don't know if this new generation really vibing with that anymore. So we have to be a bit more creative, and especially because, our people, those are our biggest assets. And if we're not able to get the right people and keep the right people, there goes your company. You have nothing. Like, you find, and it's always, I always say this when I'm talking to new leaders or people who are aspiring to be leaders, is that as a leader, your biggest asset is your team. And like, they should be the number one thing that matters. Like, the project, whatever, your boss, like, your biggest asset is your team. Because if you treat your team well and you train them well and you give them the tools they need to grow and develop, and you create an environment for them to be their best selves, then they will do things unimaginable. Like, you have certain expectations that you have for a team of 4 people, but when you give them the things that they need and create them an environment and space that they can really thrive, you'll get the work of 6, 8 people done. I promise. If I can't promise that, but it's possible, because when people feel good, they don't mind working. They don't mind working extra. When people know that the folks that they're working with is committed to something, they don't mind doing extra. When they see that everyone else is putting that same energy and effort in, they don't mind doing extra. When they know that they're getting the satisfaction of saying that they accomplished something that they didn't think that they'd be able to accomplish, or wasn't accomplishable years prior, or even months prior, or like, they'll do extra. Like, when you have a team of people going in the same direction, it creates more energy than individuals. So another thing that I wanted to bring up about leadership style is, your leadership style is your compass. Because throughout your leadership journey, you're going to start to doubt yourself. You're going to have imposter syndrome from time to time. You're going to wonder why, why you're in leadership, and you're going to doubt yourself. You're going to feel like you're ready to just go back to doing the work, or doing another role, and when you're in those spaces, and you'll be in spaces where you start to question if leadership was the right move for you, and whenever you're in that spot, I want you to think back to your leadership style and ask yourself the question am I at this very moment, because a lot of times those thoughts come up. It's oftentimes, at least in my experience, it's been during certain things. So it might be during a certain project, or it might be based on some feedback that I've gotten from a particular person. And oftentimes when I reflect on those scenarios, it goes back to, I was veered off and I'm not working within my leadership style, or I was, things kind of took a turn a bit, and I fell off, sticking to the core of what I do and what I do best, and how I do it best. And when I think about it, there's been wrenches that were thrown in the plan to say, it might be, hey, we need, my leader may come in and say, hey, we need this and we need this now. And they may give me some ideas on how to go about it. And, oftentimes, I will say, okay. And like some of my biggest failures have been when I would just kind of blindly go the route of doing something and lead in a way that's outside of my natural self. And not only outside of it, but kind of counter to it. I remember a meeting I was in. My leader asked me to fill in this meeting for him, and in the meeting I was, we were getting a couple other new team members in our area, and I was I was told to make sure that we're not splitting these team members, and that these team members are gonna they're gonna work in our area and just our area, and initially, I'm like, okay, but without having a lot of context, I really didn't. I thought, okay, cool. I mean, that's simple enough. But I found out that I was missing a lot of context in that, and I don't mind making. I like making firm decisions. It's like I come in, this is where we're going, boom, 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 boom. But when you make a firm decision without full context, it get kind of rough and awkward. So I go in and I say, yeah, we'll be having the 2 team members, and we need them full time for the next 2 quarters. And I don't think there'll be room for us to, based on the work that we have, I don't think there's enough room for us to split, either of their capacity. And one of the VPs very politely came in and said, yes, well, such and such has been working with us for the last 3 months, and we'll continue to complete the project that we've been working on, and then following that we'll see where the need is for this person to work with your the other area. And at that moment it's like, oh, I think I was missing some context. And it's like, do I fight the VP on this or not? And then it's like, well, it don't make sense for us to take a team member who's in the middle of a project, and then 1, it made me look kind of stupid, and 2, I couldn't, there was no room for negotiation. And my leadership style is all negotiation to find how we can get the biggest impact for the larger business or the larger structure, or for whatever we're trying to get impact around. It's never, hey, we need, these going to be our resources, we're going to hoard all the resources. And that's not my style, but it was my leader's style, to take the resources while you have them. And okay, I get it, but it's more of my style to negotiate and get the value in the most valuable from the most valuable things, and share the resources in a way that we can bring the most value to the overall company rather than just our area. And so, I felt real dumb, and I felt inadequate for a bit. But when I sat back and really reflected on it, it's like, I should have really stuck to my leadership style rather than listen to my leader at the time. And that's what it comes back down to, keeping your leadership style as your compass. So whenever you feel like you're falling off or you don't feel like the things are right, think back on what is your leadership style. Like what's your approach to activating people, and are you doing things in that manner, or are you being pulled away for different reasons? Are you being pulled away from what's natural to you for different reasons? And it may help to get to the bottom of that reason so you can better navigate things in the future. But the first thing to do is to ask yourself the question, does this vibe with my leadership style? Does this am I aligning to how I do things naturally? Or is it a conflict there? So now I want to talk about how to identify and develop your leadership style. So I got a few questions that I want you to really take some time and think about them. So don't just listen to the questions. Whenever I get an opportunity, I write stuff down. I'm kind of old school in that manner. I got different stuff in my Google Drive, and I have my cell phone, or I'm on my phone, kind of trying to type it out on the phone because it's easier to move around that way. But for me, stuff sticks better when I write it down, pen and paper. And I'm gonna ask you to do that. So I'm gonna ask a few questions. And I did do this myself as well, and I could share some of my answers too. But I'm gonna ask a few questions, and take the time to go through this. Especially if you're really on this journey of really honing your leadership skills. How do you define leadership? Like, what is leadership to you? why were you called to lead? And think about like different positions you've been in. Like whether you've interviewed for a position or you was given a leadership position based on whatever reasons. And it can be very different. It can be, someone saw something in you. And if it is, think about what that something might have been. Have you asked the person? If not, why not ask? Was it due to your performance? Like, why were you called to lead? Why did you accept the call to lead? And this one can get interesting. I want you to be honest with yourself too. Sometimes, we're called to lead and we accept it because the pay is better. You get more respect. You get more respect in the organization or amongst your peers. Sometimes it's a more structured career path. Whereas, some specific career paths, you might tap out at it at the senior level, and maybe, in order to kind of move up in your career, maybe that's the best move. So really get to the thick of why you accepted the call to lead. What leadership qualities or characteristics do you have? And be truthful, like, and maybe you maybe you could do a separate list of the ones you wish you had or you want to have, but be real with yourself. Like, what are the characteristics, the leadership characteristics and qualities that you have today? And this is if you were to ask someone else, and would someone else agree with this? And then again, do a separate list for the qualities and characteristics that you want to have. And then I have a few follow-up questions to help you really dive into that question, because that can be kind of daunting to think about. How do you gain and or maintain respect and trust from your peers? And what is it that your peers trust about you? Well, why do they respect you? Do they respect you? Do they trust you? I ask this question because I feel like trust and respect are needed for a good leader. Like, if your team doesn't trust you or respect you, then you will get the bare minimum. At best. You get the bare minimum at best. You find yourself spending more time thinking about, your next move, or why you don't like your leader, or why you don't trust your leader, why you don't trust your organization, why it's, you're tired of being there. What company you want to work at, what you need to do to make that next move. You're thinking about all the things except how to bring the company value, how to make your team stronger. And well, that's a slippery slope. And the question is, how do you gain and maintain trust and respect from your peers? So whether you're a leader currently or not, just in general, like, what characteristics do you have that make people trust you and respect you? Why would someone choose to allow you to lead them? What makes you special? And again, these diving into those characteristics that you have that you believe are your leadership characteristics. And it doesn't have to be, typical perceived leadership characteristics, but really dive in there and actually, get in there and see what's there. why do people want to work for you or with you? And I use both. Why do people want to work for or with you? So one thought that I have on leadership is, as a leader, you just have the role leader, but you're a member of the team. In my I guess in my concept of leadership, the leader doesn't sit outside of the team, but the leader is a role within the team. And so that's why I like to use the word, your team doesn't work for you, they work with you. You work with them. And if anything, you work for them. Why do people want to work with you or for you? So I spoke a little bit about leadership style. I don't think I shared much on my leadership, or I shared a little on my leadership style. And again, throughout the week, and maybe the following week as well, I'll continue to do a bit of research and have a few conversations with other leaders and aspiring leaders about leadership and leadership style to them as well. And we're gonna stay on this topic for a little bit. This is a journey, not just for myself, but it's I want to send us all on a journey. And it's also the educator in me that makes me feel like you should be doing something to kind of stay engaged.